This week in games, we talk about Neil Druckmann's comments about his future video game. Doom seems to be coming back with a sequel, and Hellblade 2. Is it good? You'll find out here, only on the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 201. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Hello, people. I am here to talk video games.
Oh, look at you figuring out how to bring some fucking energy into the goddamn show.
Because I got bitched at earlier, and now I am here.
You know what we're talking about, of course, if you are subscribed to the YouTube channel and next Saturday's episode of The Piggy Bank, or if you watched us live over at twitch.tv/2pennygames every Monday afternoon, sometime, subscribe and follow and hit that bell for notifications and all that, where we did indeed complain about Connor's energy, because you were low.
I know. But I rose up.
I understand you think the low energy thing is like a fun thing to do or whatever, but like nobody knows us. So like when you do it as a bit, they just go, this guy's fucking boring, and they click away, you know?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Two Penny Gamescast. Each week, me and Connor come to you with the nerdy news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, two pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. You can find this show every Tuesday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, or mainstream podcast services of your choice. Make sure you like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below about any evergreen topics or just news stories that maybe we didn't get to in the last week, so that you can have your own 2 pennies included in the show. Make sure you drop some comments down below for that. We did get quite a few comments over the last week, but not over any of the Gamescast stuff, so we're not talking about those.
No, we're not.
You know?
We're talking about Elden Ring.
Hey! They love it when we talk about the Elden Rings, Connor.
They do.
They love it. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, did I the whole 2 pennies, 2 topics, if you will?
Yep. Yeah, you did.
I did?
You did.
Man, look at me. I'm on my fucking roll today until right there where I fucked up. Ladies and gentlemen, I, of course, just drove in from New Orleans, and we live, of course, Fort Worth, Texas. Which is about an 8 to 9 hour drive, depending on traffic and so forth. So I'm a little ragged today. So who knows what type of energy we might get here in today's show. So make sure you like and subscribe to catch more fun stuff like this. Connor,
News
soon.
Huh.
But I want to let people know that today is not just a regular news episode of the podcast. This is, of course, an episode with a review attached to it. We will be reviewing Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Connor, you played it over the weekend, and I'm very, very excited to hear your thoughts on that. So,
Are you?
I am. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you stick around for that at the end of the episode, or jump to the time code down in the description below, or there will be a breakout of it, so you can just watch that. Subscribe, youtube.com/@2pennygames. All that fun stuff. All right, now, Connor, let's get into the news, my friend. Let's jump right on up. On my brain broke there for a little bit.
Yeah.
Where am I going with
you
this?
You got an excuse.
Listen, topic number 1, my first penny of the day. Doom is back, baby!
Maybe.
Probably, hopefully,
yeah.
you know, so forth. Anyways, Doom, this is an exclusive from Insider Gaming, Tom Henderson, exclusive, Doom, The Dark Ages, to be revealed at Xbox Games Showcase. Insider Gaming understands that the next game in the Doom franchise is set to be revealed during this year's Xbox Game Showcase on June 9th. The game has been under the codename/placeholder title Year Zero, is understood to have the final name Doom The Dark Ages, and has been in development for at least 4 years. Last year, I heard of early developments of the new entry into the Doom franchise, which was described to me as a medieval-inspired Doom world. Wow, that doesn't necessarily give me much information to go on. Year Zero, The Dark Ages, and medieval-inspired start to paint a vivid picture of where the series could be going next. Perhaps we'll be talking more of an early look at the Doomslayer's life during the medieval times, a prequel of sorts. Earlier this year, rumors began to swirl about a new Doom game following Bethesda's newly registered trademark IDF No, IDKFA, a well-known cheat code in the series. Last month, The Verge's Tom Warren first teased that Doom would be making its way to the Xbox showcase, a rumor that we can now independently verify.
Rumblings are being heard.
They're being heard. Connor? We both played Doom 2016.
We did.
We loved it. I played Doom Eternal. Did I review it for this channel? No, because it was before we were doing shit, right?
I feel like you did.
It was in my top 10, for sure. So I definitely talked about Doom Eternal and how much I love Doom Eternal. You never played Doom Eternal.
I never did.
Doom Eternal
much to my chagrin.
Doom Eternal was great. It was a fantastic game. And yeah, this feels right to me. This makes sense to me. I think this June showcase is a good time to announce it. Of course, we kind of broke down sort of our expectations a few weeks ago of what to see. More Indiana Jones, more probably... I'm really drawing a blank right now. More Indiana Jones, more of the games that they already showcased at the developer_direct, Microsoft Flight Simulator, et cetera, et cetera. Some release dates with all of these things start filling out the back half of this calendar of the year. I think Xbox for software releases is going to have a pretty big year when it is all said and done. Of course, this does not excuse their behavior with closing down studios and layoffs and just their complete lack of proper leadership. But putting that to the side for a second, the idea of a new Doom excites me greatly. I love what id has been doing with the Doom games ever since 2016. Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal have been some of my favorite first-person shooters of all time. A new medieval twist, maybe kind of pull away from guns a little bit, maybe a little bit more sword-type combat. Could be interesting, could kind of switch it up and give us a cool change up to the formula and so forth. Maybe we're doing some spell casting, Doom with some spell casting. I could see how all of that could work and in sort of a replacement with guns and so forth. So yeah, I'd be excited. I'm interested in this new take on what we've been doing the last two games. I think the only criticism you could lay at Doom Eternal maybe is that it is more of the first game, but I think they expanded on it and made it bigger and better than the first game in a lot of great ways. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm just excited to see what it has for us.
And Doom Medieval Times is probably the really only way they can change things up, because what are you gonna do? Just Doom never gonna end?
Yeah.
The sound plays just
Eternal,
like fucking Eternal. I hope this isn't a case where they hit gold, clearly, and they just kind of cashing it in over and over and over again until they run this IP dry.
Listen, we're only getting them like every 4 years, 2016, 2020, and now I don't think we're getting it in 2024, but maybe in 25. So every 4 to 5 years we get a Doom game. I'm absolutely on board, 100%. These guys know what they're doing. Great level design, great combat scenarios, great gameplay, great first-person shooting feeling and so forth. So if they can translate this to more melee-based weapons, which they were playing with a sword in Doom Eternal, I just don't remember how that played. And then, just find new ways to switch it up and make it interesting. I'm all about that. What I don't need, I don't need another multiplayer mode. I don't need it. I don't need a level creator for user-generated content. I'm 100% okay with just you guys. Whatever you guys cook up in your little crazy brains over there, 100% okay with just that. I don't need new multiplayer modes. I don't need user-generated levels. I don't need those things. I'm cool. I like Doom the way that you guys do it, and I'd like to just continue to have that.
I wonder what the game feel is going to be like, because one of the benefits that you mentioned of getting a Doom game every 4 years or so is it allows you to break the mold from just doing the same kind of game over and over again.
Yeah.
And they're clearly playing with new, more interesting themes, or settings, I should say. But I'm also wondering if the tone is going to be the exact same. With 2016, it kind of had a comedic element to it. The fact that I guess, were playing, those
it
old
was satirical.
Yes, satirical is a good word.
And Eternal was that way as well.
Yeah, more so. It seems like it leaned more into it now that it had kind of gained attraction.
Maybe, yeah, with some of the things, you could like dress up Doomslayer in like a unicorn outfit and so forth, but it also it had more story in Eternal. There was more story than there was in 20. Now, both of those games had stories, but it was very much like read some very dry documents to figure out what happened, but that's not why you're there. You're there to shoot demons in the face, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, with this... Yeah, I'm interested in game feel, but I'm pretty certain after the last two games that they know exactly what they're doing and how to do that. I think they've learned a lot from their 2 ventures into this. They've learned what really works and connects with the audience, and they've also learned what doesn't really work and connect with the audience. A lot of people had a lot of issues with the platforming in Doom Eternal. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was fine. It wasn't very invasive. It was just kind of like, all right, I'm just jumping over there. No, not that. Maybe I'm just an elite gamer. Who knows?
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, these guys really know what they're doing. One thing that I'd be curious of is, this is a game that I think could really benefit, and I know we're all sick of seeing it. Everybody's doing it. I think this is a game that could benefit from a roguelite mode. And that would be interesting. Whether that's a specific level or something that you can go back to or revisit throughout the game and grind out experience points or something like that, or if instead of a multiplayer mode, they're working on a roguelite mode, Doom, endless runner type thing, where you're just running through rooms and random enemies spawn and you fight them and get upgrades. And this room now has a shotgun, so now I have a shotgun for my run, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think all of that would work really, really, really well. So, like, I don't know. There's still a lot to we can still pick a lot off of this bone. We're far from running the well dry when it comes to Doom and what it has been doing with Doom for the last 6 years now. 8 years now.
Damn.
Wow.
I hope.
You ever just feel like you're getting older and older? All the time. All the time, I feel.
Natural, yeah.
But, Connor, this is a 2-piece. We also want to talk about, there is a rumor of a PlayStation showcase coming soon, and rumors of a new, what is this guy called? Astrobot. A new Astrobot game from Team Asobi. So we are pulling a quick article from GameSpot.com, George Yang, with rumors suggesting a PlayStation Showcase-style event could be coming soon. A new report has revealed a game that is said to be getting an imminent announcement, and it involves one of Sony's most recent platforming heroes, Astrobot. According to D Labs, developer Team Asobi is working on a new Astrobot game simply just titled Astrobot. There is reportedly a desert-like area or level, and one of the new characters introduced is a Fennec in the form of a robot similar to Astro. A Fennec is like a fox type thing. Yeah. Additionally, the game will reportedly be exclusive to PS5, not tied to PSVR 2. The game is reportedly going to get revealed within the next 15 days from the time of writing, which could mean it shows up during a PlayStation showcase if one does indeed take place soon. So, Astrobot made his debut in Astrobot Rescue Mission, a PlayStation VR 1 exclusive, and then was showcased in Astrobot's Playroom, which was the PlayStation 5 tech demo that came with every PlayStation 5, showing off the features of the controller and how fast the SSD is. It's a charming little thing, but I think most people really liked Astrobot Rescue Mission. I think this is the right move. First of all, it's exciting that PlayStation still is developing IPs, and it's not just going to keep recycling the same IPs over and over again. This is a new thing that has come, within the last couple of years. And now it's time to develop that into its own, like, actual franchise. And I think, first of all, titling it just Astrobot is a good thing to go. Hey, this is full game here. No more fun play stuff. We're going balls deep into Astrobot here. I'm excited about that. I think Astrobot is fun and charming. It's fun to see all the little, like, winks and nods at different IPs. And I'm just excited to see what Team Asobi does. I've only played Playroom, and I thought that was it was a good experience. It was fun, it was charming, it was a good time. Easily digestible.
I didn't know Astrobot made his debut on a VR title.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of telling that they really just
that VR2 is dead.
VR2, yeah.
God, yeah. We're going to get a bunch of shovelware, and then it's going to quietly die.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, PlayStation Vita,
Died in infancy.
100%. PlayStation VR 2 got it even worse than the Vita, in my opinion. Because like the Vita at least got games. VR 2, it's like, I guess there are games there, but like, really want to play any of them?
Go to the other VR systems.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just like,
the idea of the mascot has been kind of pushed to the side.
Yeah.
Xbox, when did they abandon Master Chief?
They never really had it. It's like the Master Chief, Marcus Phoenix, I guess, but they never really had it.
They really just based their icon. Yeah, Banjo-Kazooie. They based it off whatever was coming out at that moment in time.
Yeah.
And they haven't really bothered doing it with these, past generations because
Yeah.
they don't make games. Joke. But hey, PlayStation, same exact thing. They had Crash back in the day.
Yeah.
He kind of went by the wayside. Crash in general's just now making.
They don't
a
even have
comeback.
Crash anymore.
No.
That's an Xbox-owned
true,
IP now. Xbox, what are you doing?
Sitting on their mascot characters.
Lord alive! You have Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon just fucking sitting there. And Banjo-Kazooie just fucking sitting there. Do something with them.
Well, they needed to acquire more studios so they can kill a couple of them.
Yeah.
That's their whole entire bit. They're just waiting to get an excuse.
God, imagine a Tango Gameworks fucking like Crash Bandicoot game or something along that line, or just doing something with anything. Hi-Fi Rush had so much promise.
It did. Dumbass company.
Can you imagine how terrible it'd be if they did a Hi-Fi Rush 2 and it wasn't Tango?
That'd be
fucking riots in the street,
oh,
burn
yeah.
them down to the ground. They're smarter. They're smarter than that. They know not to do it. It's a poisoned IP.
Yeah. Smart enough to know to abandon one of their most interesting up and coming games.
But to get back to the point before we digressed off of it, the return of mascots, hopefully with Astrobot. I think they tried to do it with Knack and it never really didn't really quite get there. But I think Astrobot does have the juice. Team Asobi has been knocking it out of the park, and I think they're ready for something big and major, and hopefully they're getting the funding and the support in that. Hopefully it works in this era. I don't know if it will. Tumultuous. It's a tumultuous time in the gaming industry, and I'm off of pitch alone. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, I think it has potential. They seem to make good game systems in Playroom. I saw you play that, and it was
fun.
Yeah, seemed fun.
It was cute. Wasn't the most meaningful gameplay experience I've ever had, but it was a good time. And so I'd like to see them souped up. Let's level them up. Moving on to topic number 2, Connor. Our second story of the day. Your first penny of the day. Take it away, my friend.
It's just been a FromSoft past couple weeks. Can't get it off my brain.
Speaking of which, just go ahead and say this right now. If you caught maybe a little viral moment of us talking about some Elden Ring, specifically me, with I don't know, a take. It was a take, Maybe it was a little hot. Maybe it was a little controversial. They're fuckers. Plot and narrative are two different things. Google all you fucking want and get the Webster definition all you fucking want. But for someone who has actually studied dramatic arts and the elements and these building blocks of telling a story, it's two fucking different things. You're not equipped for the conversation. I am.
He's talking down to you.
Yes, because you're an idiot. I'm smart because I bought a $200 microphone and post things on the internet. That makes me intelligent.
You also have more dedication to do this show every single week. And so, what do?
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Hey, we've done this 201 weeks in a fucking row. Subscribe, bitch. YouTube.com/@2pennygames. Connor, take it away with story number 2.
We have an article from Fandom Wire. This was written by Aditya, reviewed by Sayantan. Quote, we have a strong will to continue it in the future. After Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, Hidetaka Miyazaki wants a new installment for one of his oldest franchises. While Hidetaka Miyazaki is usually known for his works in the dark fantasy genre, it seems like he still vividly remembers the first ever video game series he ever worked on, like it was yesterday. Moreover, he might finally be in the spirits to bring a new release to said franchise himself one more time. The first game the director got to work on was none other than Armored Core Last Raven, a title that he holds close to his heart to this date, something that will be explored deeply as we get to know how he might be planning to direct another release himself after he's finally done with Elden Ring's DLC. As revealed by Hidetaka Miyazaki himself, Shadow of the Erdtree is going to be the first and only DLC he plans to make for Elden Ring. While this also means the studio might prefer to jump straight to a sequel, it also reveals how the director is going to finally have time to himself once again, and it might be then that he decides to direct another Armored Core game. Uh-oh. Oh, fortunately, this does not seem to remain a speculation, as Miyazaki himself has shown a willingness to take on another installment of his first video game franchise. The director gave the following statement in an interview via IGN Japan, giving fans hope once again. Quote, "The Armored Core series is very important to FromSoftware. We have a strong will to continue it in the future. I believe Armored Core 6 was a success. On the other hand, not everything was perfect, and there is still room for improvement. So, I have no intention of stopping there."
Cool.
This reminds me of all of the stories we get out of Square Enix with Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, where they say the game was a disappointment with its sales.
Yes.
And it was not a success.
With millions sold.
Yes.
I mean, you get this across the industry everywhere, where with the Dead Space remake selling 3 million copies, and that's not enough. Spider-Man 2 selling 10 million, and that's not enough to ward off layoffs at Insomniac or anything like that.
Apparently, Hi-Fi Rush did not make enough.
Despite winning multiple Game of the Year award or multiple Game Awards and multiple Game of the Year awards, and being just a fantastic new fresh IP, not enough to keep that studio alive. Apparently. So you just have to sit here and wonder, what the fuck does FromSoft have over there? What the fuck did they got over there to where they just work, and they get it to work every time. The fact that Armored Core 6, I think undeniably a softer launch than every other title that they've had in recent years, probably the softest launch that they've had in several years, just didn't seem to set the world on fire in any real meaningful way. Well received, and I'm sure sold fairly well, but it seems like they know how to keep their expectations in check, and I don't know. That game kind of felt on the cheaper side to make from a FromSoft catalog perspective. It felt, it wasn't the prettiest game in the world, and it felt a little cheaper compared to, say, like a Elden Ring or even a Sekiro. So the fact that this is still deemed a success in their eyes, I think shows, one, their ability to manage their teams properly, two, manage their budgets properly, and most importantly this is the benefit of being able to stay independent and them not folding and being bought out, because I'm sure the offer's been made, being bought out by a PlayStation, being bought out by a Microsoft, and instead choosing to just continue to be third party, do the deals as they see fit, get the budget from whatever publisher they want to at the time. Of course, Bloodborne was an exclusive. Demon Souls was an exclusive. Both times. And so they see the benefits of when it's time to be exclusive to a platform versus when it's time to be on everything. And they're balancing that super, super well. And it's worth commending and applauding them, because that is just not something we're seeing these days.
And I think the fact that they're third party also factors into the expectations, because I feel like they're not expecting every single game of theirs to sell millions upon millions and millions and be the biggest game in the news that week. I think they just kind of understood what Armored Core 6 was, and they didn't, as you said, they didn't make it, as expensive, I would think, as Elden Ring or some of their bigger Souls-like titles.
I think it was a good way. I think they might have grander ambitions with this franchise. It certainly seems like Miyazaki has grander ambitions for the franchise, which is great. But I don't think they knew how to reintroduce Armored Core back into general populace, because, of course, Armored Core 5 left off not a fan favorite, and has always been a franchise that has been pretty niche. And I think it continues to be niche, but what they did with Armored Core 6 allowed them to kind of introduce it to fans and to newcomers alike in a way that, like, hey, we kind of want to go this direction with it. We have ideas. We're not going to execute on those ideas just yet, but where we are right now here, do you like this? Yeah, we like it. Do more. We're into it.
I recall some comments he made in regards to Dark Souls 2 about how that was a game that's pretty lambasted by Souls fans, but he had mentioned that was very important for the development of FromSoft games going forward. It was a good testing ground for them. So I hope Armored Core 6 is that same exact thing, because it was clearly a success on its merit. Whether its financials were all that amazing or spectacular, I don't know. Clearly it was good enough. And so it seems maybe the next one will be a bit more pumped up They'll know that there's some audience they already can captivate and extend it beyond that audience. I mean, look at Elden Ring. It was going to be big regardless, but it ended up being one of the biggest games in recent memory.
Yeah.
Which, you can't really measure those things.
To the point to where several years later, the most popular streamer just randomly decides to stream it. Not because of DLC coming out, just because he just felt like it.
Yeah.
And it became another cultural event on top of the one that you already had when you launched. You don't get those very often. But it's also nice that didn't blow up the expectation. The expectation for Armored Core stayed small. They weren't expecting Elden Ring numbers or even Dark Souls numbers or Bloodborne numbers from Armored Core. They kept their expectations in check, and their ability to release it multi-platform when they so choose to. I think Square Enix is really you brought up Final Fantasy VII, Rebirth, and 16 failing to meet expectations. Yada yada yada. I think Square Enix, and they're choosing to pivot this way, and I think it's smart of them to do so. I think they felt in this day and age being exclusive to one platform as a publisher of that size doesn't make sense anymore. And I think FromSoft was a little bit ahead of the curve on that, where they maybe the reason they're choosing not to revisit Bloodborne as an IP is they don't feel like they saw the metrics of success that they wanted to from it on release. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Or maybe there's some deal with PlayStation where they can't get out of an exclusivity deal when it comes to that IP, and they don't want to be exclusive anymore. They haven't been exclusive since, right? So I think FromSoft just kind of saw the writing on the wall years ago and said, you know what? I think it's better if we just stick to our multi-platform stuff. And they were able to have that direct comparison: Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, and then immediately followed up with Dark Souls 3. And they look at that and they go, this might have been our greatest game ever, but it got kneecapped, and now maybe people don't know about it as well as they could have or should have because it was exclusive platform. So let's just stick everything open for the rest of time.
Yeah, it's not even on PC. You could give some of the PlayStation titles, they come out on both those consoles, so you can kind of justify being more exclusive. But it's, as you said,
to be fair, there are PlayStation studios that operate under that umbrella who are the porting teams who take these titles over. So maybe Bloodborne is coming and it's just not out yet. Recently, Ghost of Tsushima, they want to get the hits out first. God of War, Spider-Man, Last of Us.
People have been asking, man.
Horizon's coming. If it's not there already, it might. I think
so,
Horizon's
yeah.
Both Horizon games are already back on PC. So we're running through it. They'll get to Bloodborne eventually.
You say.
We say. You never know. PlayStation be doing weird stuff. We didn't even talk about it. Are you excited for this PlayStation showcase?
I'm not excited, but I'm not dour on it because they've said before they're not going to have any, existing IPs having another installment. But that
releasing anytime soon.
But
this would be the time to announce it.
Yeah, they can announce it. Yeah. But I'm thinking more in terms of what's left for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Which I think is what their main goal should be, if they have anything. It's the chance to see some new interesting idea.
I don't think we see this Astrobot.
No?
I mean, maybe we do, because maybe they don't see Astrobot as a major IP. And so they're turning it into a major IP with this game, and maybe it comes out this year. Maybe. I think that'd be cool. But I take them at their word. I think we're done with PlayStation for the rest of this year and the beginning of next year. I think they got Rise of the Ronin, Stellar Blade. Missing something? Persona? No, that wasn't them. That was just purely Atlas. What else have they had this year? Have they had anything else?
I don't think they
7 Rebirth.
That was on PC as well, I believe.
Yeah. No, it is still on PS5.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still a PS5 exclusive.
Then you got those numbers for now.
So, I don't know. Interesting time to be a gamer, and it only seems to be getting more and more interesting, because as we move on to topic number 3, my second penny of the day. You were looking at the timer for a long time. I got scared. Last of Us co-director responds to backlash over his controversial comments, claims his words, context, and intent were unfortunately lost. This is a Games Radar article from Kane Sarin. And Naughty Dog co-president and The Last of Us co-director and also creator, Neil Druckmann, has set the record straight on some of his recently controversial statements. Earlier this week, in an interview with Sony at the company's corporate strategy presentation, the director reportedly said he was working on a dream project that was the studio's most thrilling yet, before adding that the currently unannounced game could redefine mainstream perceptions of gaming. A statement that read as overly boastful to some, since, gaming is already mainstream. Druckman has now tweeted to set the record straight, explaining that, quote, some of my words, context, and intent were unfortunately lost, as the published interview edited down his, quote, rambling answers. In other words, Sony published quotes that apparently never left Druckman's lips. The full answer embedded below doesn't include the line about redefining mainstream perceptions and is more clearly about non-gamers paying closer attention to the medium amid the film and TV adaptations. Let's see if I can find... Yeah. Here, let's pull the thread up. Let's have the actual quotes here so that everybody's up on the conversation here. So the quote, we got a quote in an interview. It blew the internet up. Everyone's going, Druckman, what are you talking about? This is crazy. Also, he was talking about the use of AI technology. Very scary. Very scary. But some of this obviously was misquoted by PlayStation. Sony did this. This was a Sony choice to have this fumble. I don't know what they're doing. So in an interview with Druckman, the question was, could you share a personal vision or dream project you hope to see realized in the future of entertainment? And then the quoted answer was, quote, I've been lucky to work on several dream projects and am currently excited about a new one, which is perhaps the most thrilling yet. There's a growing appreciation for gaming that transcends all age groups, unlike when I was growing up. This shift is highlighted by our venture into television with The Last of Us, which I hoped would bring the gap between gamers and would help bridge the gap between gamers and non-gamers. The show's success has spotlighted gaming, illustrating the rich, immersive experience it offers. The visibility excites me not only for our current project, but for the broader potential of gaming to captivate a global audience. I'm eager to see how this new game resonates, especially following the success of The Last of Us, as it could redefine mainstream perceptions of gaming. But Druckman then said, in editing my rambling answers in recent interview with Sony, so the context didn't, but the actual quote that he has documented that he posted right below that is, quote, well, I've been lucky in that I've already had that, that being personal dreams and things or whatever. I got the chance to make, okay, well, I'm not going to read all this. It's a lot of text. It's a lot of text. Basically, everything that's in that quote, which is concerning and it feels tone deaf, none of it happened. He didn't say it like that. He was very frank, like almost reading the original quote. It didn't even read like a Neil Druckman quote. If you follow Neil Druckman enough and like watch his interviews and stuff like that, like it felt very cleaned up, or it felt very corporate, which normally isn't Neil Druckman's kind of thing. Like, you kind of get a full personality out of him when he answers questions. And so, like, the full quote is, hey, I've been around for a while. Gaming wasn't always mainstream. Now it is. That's cool. And it can be seen as more, like, dramatic arts, in the point of, like, it wasn't that long ago that the most meaningful story in all of gaming was, hey, a zombie outbreak broke out, and now you got to stop an evil drug company. That was the depth of that story. I'm talking about Resident Evil here. Or Mario just goes and saves the princess. The Last of Us TV show was a hit. Fallout TV show is a hit. And those games have substance, or those shows have substance to them, and that substance is lifted directly from the games. So now, non-gamers get to experience these TV shows and go, oh, wow, this is great. Where did this come from? A video game, really? Let me go try it out. And so now we're gaining new and more gamers off of that. And now, like, in that sense, it can work. He's also saying, I'm just excited at what I'm working on, guys. Like, we're working on something. I'm really excited about it. I hope it works out, And that's all he said. Sony took that, cut out a lot of it, and reframed and reworded statements to fit this vision of a quote that they wanted for the future of PlayStation as a company. You know what I'm saying? So this quote wasn't from or about Neil Druckman or his game. This was a quote from Sony, and they're using Neil Druckman as a face instead. This is what they do to musical artists in the music industry. Is they force them to reword, or they alter their music. Like, sometimes the product that comes out is not what the creator intended. And so they're kind of doing that with Neil Druckmann here, where this quote isn't for an idea of what Naughty Dog is doing. This quote isn't for us to interpret who Neil Druckmann is. This is a quote for stockholders. This is something that is being said on a business level. My teeth are really sensitive now, and I don't know why. On a business level to generate revenue. So it's kind of a like gross, capitalistic focused rewording of a creator, and I think Neil Druckmann has very delicately understood that he took backlash of that online and danced around it as politely as he could to say, hey, that wasn't me, that was Sony. And he did it in a very political, like, respectful way. But it immediately, like, it's like, oh, okay, Sony's on some bullshit, not Neil, you know?
Which happens. Sometimes
And don't get me wrong, sometimes Neil is on some bullshit. But this isn't one of those cases.
For the most part, no. It sounds really like a classic case of the interviewee not recording the conversation, which is always recommended to avoid
it's a
these kinds of
transcript.
problems. Yeah, but apparently they didn't fucking pay attention to it. You know.
No, I think they said this is really wordy. Let's pare it down, and let's make it reflect the vision we as Sony want.
Could be. Either way, they didn't expect the reaction, obviously. So the most concerning part, as you mentioned before, was AI. These comments, even without the clarification.
I mean, Druckmann doesn't clarify his comment on AI, with the use of AI technology paving the way for the future of video games and that and the third. Again, now we're in a tricky situation of what did he say and then what does Sony want him to say, you know?
But you would think if he did get his words misinterpreted, he would also mention that here. Of course, if that's not the case and it was also twisted, he might not just be wanting to draw attention to his view on AI. Yeah, because, you know, I remember he only recently became the head of Naughty Dog, didn't he?
Last couple of years.
Well, couple of years. I remember there was a moment, we covered it on the show, where he just kind of was like, yeah, we're going to crunch. We're just going to do that. Sorry.
Well, it wasn't like that, but, you know, it was very much like, hey, we at Naughty Dog are very passionate about what we do and what we make, and yeah, we crunch. Yeah, but work long and hard hours.
Also, when didn't even seem interested in combating it. Now that he was the head of a studio, it was like, hey, we're just going to have to come up with ways to deal with it. He was very vague in the words he was saying.
Yes, but this is the problem with crunch is it is a crunch culture.
It is.
These devs pride themselves on their crunch, but they don't realize that of how unhealthy it is because this is what the industry has been so long. So it's a matter of reprogramming our workspaces to negate as much crunch as possible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
To the point to where, moving on to our nope, not that. But there was quotes from, I forgot we chopped that title. But there was quotes from Larian Studios this last week of like, hey, for Baldur's Gate 3, yeah, we had to crunch a little bit. Yeah. So, are we ever going to be able to eliminate crunch entirely? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it because, hey, these publishers really like the free labor, you know? But at the same time, it's like, well, we want these people healthy for them to make our games, and so you know, crunch is a double-edged sword. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it really doesn't work out, you know. So it's a tricky balance, and we of course want the balance to favor artists and not have them work ridiculous hours, because it's also proven that most games that come out excellent most games that come out without crunch come out really good usually. Whereas when they do crunch, it could go either way. So yeah, I mean, crunch is just like so inundated in game dev culture right now. So it's just a matter of battling that at all times. Now, guys like Neil Druckmann and guys like the head of Larian, that needs to be placed on them to be like, hey, you shouldn't fucking do that. You should figure out a way to make your games without having to do that, you know? Especially when you're Neil Druckmann and your Last of Us multiplayer project didn't come out because it got canceled because it wasn't coming together, and now your team had to crunch on that and make it work for all this time for nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Which,
what are we doing?
That goes into the conversation of, are some projects just kind of wasted? They jump on them thinking they're good ideas, and they're not fully realized? I mean,
of course.
Like Last of Us multiplayer seems to be a response to live service games.
Yeah.
Wanting to make that.
Well, I think it was an idea that started strong and could have been because it was supposed to be. Remember, it was supposed to be a mode in part 2. Is what it was supposed to be. And it was supposed to come later, and it just never came later. And then they expanded it into its own game because they felt like they could, and so they did. And then we live in the world of live service, so you need to have constant updates, and that's not what Naughty Dog is strong at. Again, them canceling that game was the right move.
It was.
It just hurts.
We've seen it too often with some studio that's not used to working on a live service game, making one, and in the case of, Redfall, for example, completely taking out Arcane Austin.
Yeah.
Or Eidos Montreal for Avengers. They were in charge. Crystal Dynamics.
For Avengers, and then most recently Rocksteady Suicide Squad.
That one as well, yes.
Even though I guess reportedly that was Rocksteady's idea and not
yes.
Who's it? Warner Brothers. But, I don't know how much I believe that, but it is what it is. Moving on, speaking of studios and closing, or maybe not closing. Moving on to our final topic of the day, and going to be our roll-in to our Hellblade 2 review. Connor, take it away.
We have an article here from Kotaku by Willa Rowe. Hellblade 2 studio reportedly already working on its next game. Fresh off the release of Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, Microsoft has reportedly greenlit the next project from developer Ninja Theory. The studio, which was acquired by Microsoft in 2018 for $117 million, has earned a reputation for creating high-quality narrative action games. That's something it has recently delivered more of in Senua's Saga, which you can read our review on here, blah, blah, blah. But even with a proven track record, the swath of record studio closures at Microsoft had fans worried for Ninja Theory.
Oh, shit. My bad.
Oh, no. At Microsoft, had fans worried Ninja Theory would not release another game until now. According to a report from Windows Central, Ninja Theory has been given the go-ahead to start development on a new project. The article clarifies that this new project is not the same as Project Mara, the experimental psychological horror title from the studio that was announced in 2020. A teaser for the game sees Hellblade star Melina Jurgens in the titular role of Mara, a woman struggling with mental illness of some sort. The game will be set inside one location that appears to be a high-end mental facility. We haven't heard much about Project Mara since its initial reveal, and there is no release window as of yet. A day before Hellblade 2's May 21st release, Ninja Theory head Don Matthews released a message on social media thanking players for their continued support of the studio and the Hellblade series. It's a sweet message without context, but it set off alarm bells for many fans. Just 2 weeks ago on May 7th, Microsoft announced that multiple studios, including Arcane Austin and Hi-Fi Rush developer Tango Gameworks, were being shut down. Many immediately hypothesized Ninja Theory could be next. When Matthews' post was shared, some people worried it was a premature obituary for the studio. It wasn't! And they're making another game! Windows Central asserts in its report that, quote, there are no plans whatsoever to close the studio anytime soon, end quote. Hopefully, that proves to be true.
And that's where I think, we pick up, let's hope, but, there was always the talk right before Tango Gameworks of the expansion and of the development of these studios and to support these studios and their creative ventures and all this. And then we just saw evidence after evidence of that's not the real case. The unfortunate truth of this industry is that it's cutthroat and it's money focused and it's not people focused like it should be. And Xbox is currently in a place where Microsoft seemingly is kind of dominating the business choices made under its realm because of the expansion with the Activision Blizzard King acquisition. And so now we're in a place of like, all right, how much more heartbreak are we going to face because of this?
And the problem is this came out the day before it was released. Now, I played the game. There will be a review following the coverage of this story for Hellblade 2. But unfortunately, I haven't seen many people talk about the game. I've seen some YouTube clips pop up on my feed about big moments that happen.
I've seen a little bit of conversation. Probably about as much conversation as I was expecting to see. Some of it negative because of the game's runtime, which is unfortunate because a game's runtime doesn't value. But at the same time, I also understand you want to get your bang for your buck.
You do. But it kind of leaves me to think that paired with the Tango Gameworks story, as you mentioned, they were pretty high on it At least you think they were, and then they canceled that studio. So as much as I want to take comfort in this story, it seems the fact that this is all decisions that were made before Hellblade 2 was officially released makes me think that it's going to be one of those situations where they use the low sales of the game, if it does indeed have low sales, to justify a closure after the fact. Because this game took 5 years to make, and it's surprising it took 5 years to make. And it's hard for me to think of a studio like Microsoft, with how they've been recently, to not act in some kind of negative way.
Yeah.
And so I'm holding my breath.
Well, my question immediately becomes is like size comparison, and what do we see these individual studios as? Does Microsoft see Tango Gameworks as an extension of Bethesda still, or as an individual studio, versus Ninja Theory as its own individual studio? If Microsoft sees previously known as Bethesda Studios still under that umbrella, and they just want to slim up Bethesda as a whole and just focus on their mainline guys, so Bethesda proper, Machine Gun, and id, that's kind of unfortunate for guys like Arcane Austin, for guys like Tango Gameworks, and it sucks that those guys get the chopping block when they just put out Arcane Austin has a history of putting out great titles, even though they've stumbled with Redfall. But one mistake,
shouldn't kill you.
Yeah, shouldn't kill you. And then Tango, who just fucking knocked it out of the park with Hi-Fi Rush. And now, again, they also kind of fumbled with Ghostwire Tokyo. But
before that, they also did Evil Within 2, which was way bigger than people thought. Yeah,
people liked. It's really unfortunate that we're just in this space now. And if that's the case, is they see the closures of those studios as slimming down of Bethesda as a whole to make room for more Activision Blizzard, which is unfortunate to think about. But Ninja Theory is going to be able to snake through because it's a small team and it's its own thing, and they bought them out separately. I can see how these business decisions get made, but it kind of sucks because a lot of people worked really hard on some of these games, and they should be rewarded for it, not punished for it. Just because they're a subsidiary of a different company that got bought out. Now, I haven't played Hellblade. It's always been something that's interesting to me as an art piece, and I'm glad that the art exists. And it does seem like, there is a lot of talent behind this team, specifically in the art department with, sound and audio design and just world design and art design. Like, it's getting praised for how the game looks across the board. But I guess I just don't see the logic. I just don't see... Xbox desperately needs a win, and they just keep kind of stepping on rakes instead of investing where they should. So it's confusing to me. But I don't know. Hopefully this means we get more better, bigger games from Ninja Theory, and hopefully some people get to see their dream projects get made, like a Neil Druckmann.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like this is going to be another Hellblade. The thing they have on the chopping block, well, not chopping block, but they have coming up next. Yeah. Because you would want to see, I would think, success with your game before going on for another one. I'm kind of surprised that there was a second game in the first place. Especially if you played the original, it doesn't leave really any room with what the game gives you for a sequel. Clearly they could, though.
So, Connor, with all of that, go ahead and dive right into review of Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. This is the news segment. Don't go anywhere just yet as we dive into this, but we're going to go ahead and close out our news segment of the show. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow for more. Drop comments down below. I'm not in the wide like I thought I was. Excuse me. Drop comments down below for your own audience 2 penny to be included in the run of show. And until next time, have a great time. Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye.
What's poppin', players? Welcome back to a 2 penny games review. This time, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my co-host and lead reviewer. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Lead reviewer and fresh off the game as about 3 hours ago.
You beat it today.
I did.
You did. Did you start it today?
No, I started it on late at night on Friday.
Okay.
And then it was from there Sunday session.
Yeah.
And then I just cleaned it up today.
Oh, okay.
It's a short game.
Oh yeah,
very short game.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of been like a topic of debate because people are like, oh, it's like only like 5 hours long. There's there's a video circulating that's like 5.5 hours long of the full game and stuff, gameplay and all that. How many hours did it take you to beat?
The problem is that I used the Xbox app, and I don't know if you experienced this, but it doesn't keep track of my time in some games. So it's still I played like at least 2.5 hours, or 3 hours really, on my second session, and it was saying I had 0.9 hours in the game, and it's still saying that. So I predict it's around the average. I skipped over some of the optional content, and so it's probably more around the stated hours it takes to complete, which is 6, maybe 5, a little more than 5.5. Short game,
yeah,
but it's a game that would drag on more than I would think it would.
Wow.
It didn't seem
even with
like
its
it was 6
runtime.
hours.
Well, let's go ahead and get into it, my friend. Go ahead with your full review of Senua's Saga Hellblade 2.
Well, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is an all-right game.
Oh.
It right out the gate. If you know about Hellblade, you know it looks beautiful. The first one specifically looks very, very nice. This one, even more so. It is one of the best-looking games that is on the market right now, which makes sense because it took about 5 years since the first one to make, and unfortunately, it seems to be the technical aspects that are the biggest draw of Hellblade once again. I just played the first one in preparation for this game, and one of the things I found lacking was the combat system. Very, very simplistic. It would change things up crazily, besides enemy variants, giving you multiple ones at the same time to fight. This second game does away completely with that. And so you're fighting one enemy at every single combat encounter at a time. Now, they made them more interesting to fight. They're the same, varieties. You got your heavy guy, your shield guy, your kind of maniac with a knife, and then your typical sword users. But they all generally base around the same style of combat, which is to do pretty unforgiving dodges. Well, I say unforgiving because you don't dodge large distances, but it does the job right. Parrying, which is actually pretty tight. It's a parry system that even though it seems simple, it's hard to nail down right. Even sometimes I thought I would hit that parry perfectly. I did not, in fact, hit it perfectly, and I just blocked it.
So would you say it's a good parry system or not?
I'd say it's a good parry system. It's the problem that the combat system, besides that, isn't very well fleshed out and isn't really improved upon from the first game, which, when you think about how long this game took to make from its previous installment, 5 years, you would think that'd be something they change up rather than really just be visual and auditory effects, which, going to the auditory ones, you're playing a character who has schizophrenia. And so they're hearing multiple voices. Sometimes they'll play out the left ear, sometimes the right ear. And it's very effective at creating the character of Senua to be one of conflict within herself. Because it does feel like there's multiple characters that are talking in you at the same exact time.
I want to correct you real quick. The character has psychosis.
Psychosis, yes. I'm not a medical expert, as you can tell.
Yeah.
But it's a strong theme of the game, overcoming that, living with that, because it doesn't try to do the cop-out of, you find the cure in the first game and it's solved. But it's about finding yourself and dealing with it. Hellblade 2 continues to do that, which makes sense thematically when it's a constant struggle and you're not all of a sudden just going to cast off its shackles, but you're retreading already tread ground. And when you're talking about a game that doesn't have many great improvements, it really is felt. There's a lot of moments in this game where you're just walking over and over and over again. Walking simulator is a good way to describe it, because something like Death Stranding is one where you walk, but you do a lot of things while you're walking. Not in Hellblade 2. You're just walking to get to the next point, which can work at times when you're having that inner conflict that Senua's always dealing with, hearing the voices give their own opinions of things, sometimes making you second guess, what Senua is going to act like in regards to characters that she meets in the world, which is another vast, change from this game where it's not an isolationist story. It's one where there are characters that pop up here and there, and they're performed well, like Senua herself. And the plot itself is pretty interesting to go along with the visuals. You're fighting giants, and it really does create this somewhat horror vibe. But unfortunately, it doesn't really lead into that from a gameplay perspective, with a lot of the interactions with these scary figures being streamlined. Dodging area of attacks that you just have to get from point A to point B to avoid. Running through a pretty simple maze, not even a maze, a simple level to try and get away from the threat that's chasing you. So it doesn't really do anything from a gameplay perspective to make that interesting. And so through much of your runtime, you're going to be just, walking a ton from point A to point B, listening to voices, coming up across a combat encounter, which is really just throwing enemy after enemy after enemy at you over and over again, which when you're only dealing with one at a time, gets like you're kind of hammering nails. Something that kind of makes that a bit better is the motion capture is very visceral. When she's in combat, she seems like Senua's fighting for her life. She's, putting it all into the sword stroke and then typically just getting tacked from behind and having to, shift your focus onto that new enemy. And it all makes the moments feel really dirty and grimy. And that's where the graphics really come back in to help give you a sense of just your character going through hell, trying to achieve her goal, which is pretty simplistic in this game. It's trying to save people, which kind of is a weird juxtaposition from her last character, her position in the last game, where you don't really see that side to her, and all of a sudden she's caring about people, and that's really, really important to her. Like, not only just as important to her, but just as a general humanity thing. But, it makes Senua likable that she's dealing with all of these, personal problems, and yet her main goal is to help others, particularly because of her own experiences, and it making her appreciate the light at the end of the tunnel. Themes are very heavy with this, coming in from the last one. And unfortunately, like the graphics and like the auditory experience the game provides, that's really all you're dealing with. There's puzzles in the game. They're very similar, almost the exact same, actually, from how the first game did it, which I keep bringing up the first game because it's disappointing to know a game that came out years ago didn't really improve upon itself when there was improvement to be made. And you just kind of rehashed the same exact ground once again. The puzzles are very simple. You'll come up against some kind of barrier, a symbol will form on that barrier, and you have to find real-world examples of those symbols to match up with your line of focus to unlock parts of the door. And you do that less so than you did in the first game, which is nice because it just made you do it over and over and over again in the original one. This one, it's used a lot more sparingly, but you're still kind of left thinking, this is the kind of puzzle you have to offer me? It changes it up when you get your ball and you have to put the ball in the spot, and you have to get the other two, and then you move on. And it tries to, in the pursuit of these puzzle items to progress, it does some nice visual, changes, alterations in game. But once again, it's all very surface level. It's nice to look at. You appreciate it, especially from an artistic standpoint, as someone who talks about this kind of stuff consistently on this podcast.
Yeah.
In tandem with the story that kind of came out of possibly the studio getting closed, you really want them to continue because they are visionaries. They have an artistic desire that they're expressing. And I'm always a big fan of that kind of stuff, even if the product itself isn't the most directed, isn't the most, isn't focused on providing you a fun gameplay experience. It's feeds too much into the art, where I kept thinking of the Order 1886 while I was playing this game.
Oh, no.
I think this is way better than the Order 1886. Yeah. On combat alone, due to the visceral nature of it, makes it where it's not only entertaining to watch at multiple points, but as bland as the combat is, it does have a flow to it. So you are, getting in the groove of, I'm going to, look badass while taking out this Draugr. But ultimately, not much substance to be had there.
Okay. The first question I have is, okay, so like gameplay, it's not really offering a whole lot. It's beautiful in its visuals, and it's visceral in its sort of production and presentation of it all. Is the narrative good? Because you seem to enjoy the thematic elements of it, even though it retreads what happened in the first game. But like, was this a good story narrative? Like, did you enjoy the ride that you go through with Senua? Because that was a praise of the first one.
Yeah, I like the spectacle, especially. But like I was mentioning earlier, the giants are very cool. They're very intimidating. Beyond that, going back to another point, you're constantly walking and you're hearing your own voices in your head.
Yeah.
should have spent more of that time with the characters you meet and with the narrative of itself rather than the internal struggle that Senua's already going on, especially when you just had that in your last game. It didn't expand in the proper directions with its narrative, but it was interesting, you know? It wasn't the most unpredictable thing. You know, you kind of saw where things were coming as they happened. So it's not like a really big draw of the game, though it's not a detriment while you're playing it. I really would have done more with more interactions with the characters you meet rather than just being in Senua's head, since you just had that. So not much I can say to, you know, I can't really praise it all that much, but I'm not going to sit here and deride it.
Okay. Well,
it's kind of part of the issue, is because when you have this kind of game that's very visually pretty and narrative focused outside of your own main character, when you don't have much to explore, it can kind of it left me lacking after all was said and done.
Well, then my next question into that is like, coming off of the first one, you went and played the first one as homework for this one.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. But like, did you feel like we needed this experience again, or is it just that you were just hoping that they would do more with it?
Well, you know, I kind of wish they did more with it.
Yeah.
Really just that, because they did go in a different direction than what the first game did, and it was one that was very welcome. It felt different. It had a different kind of energy than when I was playing the first game. It's just, once again, these things aren't enough to carry the game and elevate the game as a whole. You're really just saying, yeah, that part was, you know, nice. That part was better than the first one. Because I'm comparing it a lot to the first one. It's better than the first one. The narrative, I think, is more, you know, interesting. Even though you have a less of a focus on Senua's journey. Though it is very much a focus in this game.
Yeah.
And she has a lot of development going forward. But it really just doesn't make you want that next narrative beat. You're really just going through the scenarios that the game puts you in rather than trying to uncover, you know, what makes the Norse named character that I can't remember because they're Norse named work.
Yeah.
There's substance there. It just doesn't capitalize on it. It's pretty disappointing overall.
Wow.
Though the game itself isn't bad.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I got you. And then from there, you know, there was talks of, we talked on the Two Penny Gamescast, which is subscribed to the channel, or if you're sticking along from that, this could potentially be stitched onto that, but it comes out every Monday or Tuesday, 8 a.m. Central. We talked about the possible future of Ninja Theory, because that seems to be kind of up in the air after recent events at Xbox. Xbox acquiring Ninja Theory, them working on this game, it being announced same time as the Xbox Series X got announced. And so now we are several years deep into this console generation. We're getting this game. Like, is an all right worth it? Like, do you think whatever comes next is going to keep this studio going, or are we seeing the signs on the wall early here?
Well, it depends. First of all, on three things, really. It depends on Microsoft's response to it.
Yeah.
As we know, publishers like that can be very, very finicky in terms of what they expect the game to do, on what direction the game is going to even take. So, besides hinging on that, the next game that they have in the works, if it's Hellblade, you just need to do more on you got the graphics down. You're fine. You don't need to do the next breakthrough of how
all those things take a long
look.
time to do all that, you know?
They do.
The graphics don't just work. It's a lot of art.
Yeah, which is why you shouldn't focus on a lot of time on improving it. If you are doing another Hellblade, focus on the gameplay. Change it up. Make it feel different, even. You know, that's really where your make it or break it situation comes from. That, or if they make another game.
Well, now my question is that like, all right, we are 2 titles in, multiple years on both titles. Does this team even have it in them to innovate on their gameplay or innovate on their combat systems at all? Or should they maybe just throw those to the wayside and figure something else out?
Which is the other path they could take. If they do another game, maybe do so less focused on being a pretty narrative. You know, have it be a narrative, by all means, even a short game. That might work to your benefit if you really dive in to the gameplay systems. It really is all about the systems at the end of the day for video games. I think nowadays we're seeing where games are extremely finicky on whether they'll survive or not.
Yeah.
And the studios, unfortunately, now along with them, that very, very short, kind of weak on gameplay narrative just isn't going to cut it a third time. Because I don't even know if it's going to cut it this second time. I'm very worried about what Ninja Theory is going to be like in the future, or if it even is going to have a future. But I want them to do more because, this isn't a bad game. It's it's more just overwhelmed by the fact that it's a disappointing game with what I would want from it.
Yeah. So I can't find, when it comes to the future of Ninja Theory, which I of course would rather them continue their development and put out more games. I'm seeing budget for the first game was less than $10 million.
Okay.
And surpassed 1 million units sold, and so it recouped its budget in 3 months. That was the first game.
Damn. Okay.
Maybe the second one, but also Game Pass being an issue here. I mean, 5 years of development, yes, but it is a smaller team making a smaller scoped thing. So, like, ideally, the budget on this game shouldn't be too crazy inflated. So maybe it's just a matter of like the output or the profit that they make off of this is good for the budget that's going into it.
I hope so. I really do. Because, despite my, not highest praise on this game, I respect gaming as an art. And that's clearly what they're pursuing. And I've always been a big fan of continuing to fund the arts.
Yeah.
And so I hope that's a nice kind of excuse they have.
Well, did you buy this game or did you download it through Game Pass?
Game Pass, because I still had it.
There you go.
Hey, that's a criticism of Game Pass. More so than...
criticism of your character as well, because you don't go buy the fucking $50 video game. Oh, no, it's full price, isn't it?
$50, no.
Is it 50?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which still, when you're offering a, not really improved upon from the first game in terms of gameplay, 5-6 hour long game.
Yeah.
Not much reason to go back to it.
Tall task.
Yeah.
Tall ask, yeah.
I'm not looking forward now to playing this on our game club, just because it's not a game that requires to. It's a one and done type game. And, I hope, as you were saying before, they're able to work around any kind of closure due to the way the game is made. Because there's substance with this team, clearly, and there's substance with this game. Even if it's not exactly the ones that would propel it ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is your review for Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Let us know down in the comments how you felt about the game, if you played the game, if you're going to play the game. And Connor, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for playing Hellblade 2. I know it's not necessarily your type of video game, but
I was happy to play it.
Hey,
if they come up with another one, even if it's the same kind of gameplay, and I'm like, they should have done something different, I'll still play it.
That's a level of praise.
Yeah.
So
it's got to flow, guys. It's got to flow.
It's got to flow.
You can attach yourself to something.
There's fun?
At times, yeah.
Oh, okay. Look at that. Anyways, until next time, have a great time. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow for more socials, all in the description down below. And until next time, Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye and have a great day, night.